This episode is sponsored by the Live Alcohol Experiment, a 30-day science-based and compassion-led journey where you learn to develop a healthier relationship with alcohol without relying on willpower. Why? Because the truth is that willpower runs out. Instead, you learn how to focus on what you gain, not what you give up, so you can feel good about the decisions you make without shame or guilt. With the 30 days of video training, virtual daily coaching, and a private and supportive community, you get that and so much more. Join us today to get happier, healthier, and to take back your life. Your Live Alcohol Experiment starts on the 1st, so sign up at livealcoholexperiment.com.
Hello, everybody. I'm Scott Pinyard, head coach at This Naked Mind, and I am back for another edition of Coaching Questions. This time I have Dr. Ginny Trierweiler with me. How's it going, Ginny?
It's going well. I'm here in Oaxaca, Mexico, enjoying the sunshine. All my friends talk about blizzards back in the States.
Yeah, I'm super jealous of you being in Mexico right now. So Ginny, Ginny said, I asked Ginny what she does, and here's who Ginny works with. She says, I work with women of a certain age, generally 50s and 60s, who find they are overeating and or overdrinking and who are becoming more and more concerned about their futures. Tell me a little bit more about that, Ginny. I can absolutely see how that would be a group of people that would be reaching out for help.
Yeah. Well, it was me. I was really losing my health, even though I imagined myself being in my 70s and 80s and being really spry and active and hiking and all these things. By the time I was about 55, I could barely walk. I couldn't go for a walk by the park anymore. I had trouble doing the grocery shopping. I was drinking probably a bottle of wine every night and kind of doing this. I call it queenly eating. I was like doing this super indulgent eating and drinking every single day, like something that might be okay if you did it once or twice a year. But if you do it every day, and for so many years in my life, I felt like I was getting away with it, right? Like I never gained weight until I did. And I never had problems with drinking until I did. I thought I was being really sophisticated. And I just ended up, I ended up by the time I was 55 and just struggling, like I can't find a way to change this. I can't break these habits. I mean, I was feeling suicidal by that point. Like I am so ashamed. I feel so miserable. I feel like such a failure. I don't know what to do. Nothing works. So once I'm jumping way ahead, but once I figured out how to turn all that around, I found Annie Grace for help with the drinking, and I figured out ways of eating that would really break the cycle of overweight and overeating. I had to help other women because I felt like, boy, they're getting terrible advice most of the places they turn, right? And they're just, when we lose that whole group of women in our society to ill health and disease and inability to do very much anymore, we have lost something huge. Like we need these women to be their best. So I really wanted to help them. Like, this works, you can do this.
I love that. And I know that feeling so well. I mean, that's how I started coaching after reading This Naked Mind. I remember I was part of an online like self-improvement group at that point. And I remember going into that group and posting like, you have to read this book. And I felt like I needed to communicate it. So I totally get it. I'm really interested in kind of the overlap of overdrinking and overeating. Actually, one of the questions I have from you is that someone wrote in is asking exactly that. She says, I use two things to cope with stress, food and alcohol. I truly do think alcohol is a bigger problem. However, I'm worried that if I quit drinking, I'll be picking up all types of snacks and not the kind that are good for me to deal with stress. I feel stuck. And so that's what she said. And I see this all the time. And people will come to us and they'll be talking about, they'll say, hey, I have a problem with definitely my diet is an issue and my drinking is an issue. I can't get a handle on either of them. I'm very interested in how those two are kind of intertwined and what you would say to this person who wrote in.
Yeah, I know for me, I mean, part of my wake up call was I found out I was pre-diabetic. Like I was having all these signs that my health was going down. And then I found out I'm pre-diabetic. And so I really started researching this. I also started working in nursing homes, and I don't know if people know this, but the people in nursing homes are not far from my age. Like I was thinking it's going to be people in their 80s and 90s. No, it's a lot of people in their 60s and 70s who have developed diabetes or had a stroke or
Wow.
have dementia, like they're losing their cognitive functioning. And when I studied, how does this happen? It went back to what you're eating and drinking more than anything. Like you can talk about all these contributors to your health and your aging, but it's eating and drinking more than anything. These are the really big dominoes.
Yeah.
So I had to get a little bit honest. Like, Ginny, this is where you're headed. You're not going to be this 80-year-old hiking. You're headed for the nursing home in the next 5 to 10 years if you don't break out of this. So for me, what I started saying to myself is I started changing my identity rather than I eat the most pleasurable foods. I'm very sophisticated by overeating and over drinking every night, doing this really self-indulgent thing. I started saying everything I ingest either makes me healthier or makes me sicker. Like everything I ingest either helps or harms my body. So rather than tell myself a little won't matter, a little sugar, a little alcohol won't matter, I knew that wasn't true.
Yeah.
So I quit saying that to myself and started saying, I'm going to really start to figure out how do I do the best by my body? Like if I lived on a desert island, I would look to make my body as functional as possible.
Right.
And if I want to be the person hiking in my 80s, I also need to take that approach to my body. So yeah, that made a really big difference to me. To tackle both at once actually was far easier than doing one and then doing the other.
So that was going to be my question, because when people ask me this question, we always talk about the idea of the big domino.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'll
Yeah.
ask them like, which one? And even this person who wrote in said, I think alcohol is a bigger problem. So a lot of times when I've coached people, I coach them through the beliefs around alcohol. And then, and a lot of times, to be honest with you, like particularly this one is I use food and alcohol to deal with stress. Right. So there's a belief right there. So you're saying that you found that it was easier to do both at once. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, partly the brain chemistry, the addiction pathways in my brain, I could see them because like so many days I would say, I'm not going to drink tonight. I'm not going to eat like that. I'm just going to eat healthy. And by the end of the day, my brain was saying, I am going to eat and drink all that stuff. I don't know how I could possibly relax. I don't know how I could possibly get to sleep without that stuff. Of course, I'm going to do that stuff. And then just this shame spiral that I would get into. So I knew for me, at least, and for a lot of my clients too, like sugar is not that far different from alcohol. It may not have the intoxicating effects, but the addictive reaction, like I want more, is very much part of the brain chemistry. So I knew rather than keep those addiction pathways running with sugar, if I tackle both of these at once, I'll get through that so much faster and with so much less pain. It's scary at first, like the idea of I'm going to move away from both of these at once. But the fact that it's scary is a sign that that's something that's non-nutritious and addictive.
Yeah.
So I wanted to rip the Band-Aid off, get through that moment as fast as possible and just really focus on how do I give myself what's going to help my body.
I love that. And I actually really like that. What did you say? Everything I eat either helps me or hurts me.
Yes.
I think or everything I eat and drink, I guess is what you said.
Yes.
I think that's so amazing because one of the things, and it's so simple, right? And one of the things that, I see people very often kind of dealing with, and particularly around this question around stress is like, oh, well, I quit drinking and then I started eating, like my stress food is French fries. So like when I quit drinking, I was having French fries like, I don't even want to say how many times. Definitely more than 4 times a week, more like 7 times a week, right? But that was part of the journey for me.
Right.
What I like about this approach is the idea that you're including all of it, right? And it's about help or harm. So when you work with clients, how do you set them up? Like, how do you get them to deal with? You mentioned it's scary. How do you deal with that fear when it comes up?
Yeah, one thing that we do is we start with adding before we subtract. So what I really found is once I really started amping up my nutritious foods, my body started responding in a really happy way. And that gave me sort of more confidence and courage to get rid of the things I needed to get rid of.
I like that.
So I really started with that. I'm going to eat quite a lot more nutritious foods. I'm going to keep amping that up. My clients find that feels good,
Yeah.
to start by adding before they take things away. People are used to the concept of dieting, and this is really different from that, because dieting is all about deprivation. It's all about being temporary,
Yeah.
and that just is not going to add up to results. Yeah, I created a masterclass on this. I can tell people how to find it at some point if they want to understand, because this whole idea that I'm going to reduce my calories and that's going to lead to healthy weight loss is just so wrong. It's my soapbox. Don't get me started.
I can tell you're getting amped up. No, that's awesome. And I mean, so the thing is, I mean, this idea of the misinformation that's out there,
Yes.
is for me around alcohol, that really drives me.
Yes.
When I watch, I saw someone, I was in an airport yesterday for the first time in a year. And I saw a lady pushing a stroller, and she had a shirt on that says, oh no, the kid had the shirt. The kid had the shirt on that said something like, "Mommy drinks because I cry." And
ouch.
I'll be honest with you, 10 years ago, I would have thought that was funny.
Funny.
Now
Yeah.
I see it and I'm like, and it's like all of these sort of lies and misinformation that's out there. And for someone who's trying to change their way they eat, or for someone who's trying to change the way they drink, it's like, where do you turn? Like, where is this information? So I know I get the soapbox idea, because I feel that way very often. Like, you don't have to believe these things that are, that you're told.
And I feel like getting a little mad about that is part of the positive emotion that moved me, that got me out of my stuck place. Like, that is BS. I'm not going to believe that anymore. I'm going to notice that they're telling me, oh, having some wine is good for you. Oh, having these chips, having these fries, having this chocolate, it's all good for you. Yeah.
You can find anything you want, right?
Yes.
Just Google like French fries healthy, and you'll find someone that says it's
fine. And meanwhile, when I was growing up, most people were not overweight, but now most people are overweight. And that's a really fast change. That's all due to our eating. So the people marketing food and drink to us do not care about us. And we need to start to hypnotize ourselves in response, like in defense.
Yeah. So good. So another thing, I was thinking about your niche in working with women in their 50s and 60s. And I thought about my mother-in-law and my mom. And one thing that I know, my mother-in-law doesn't drink. My mom does occasionally. But one thing that I know is really important to them is their grandkids, and being able to connect. And, particularly once retirement comes, whenever that happens or whatever that looks like for us.
Right.
I found another question around this, and I'd really be interested to hear your response. So the question is this: I keep thinking about my reasons for quitting, and they always boil down to my grandkids. I want to do more with them. I want to be there longer for them. And I end up feeling so bad when I choose to drink, even though I have kept them as my why so firmly in my mind. What can I do to get myself to understand that they are more important than alcohol?
Yeah, I think one of the things we know about people trying to go through a habit change is that we can expect too much in the short run, and we can expect too little in the long run. So so it really helps to envision that future that we really picture. So for me, and I made it big for myself: nursing home in the next 5 years, hiking in the mountains, in the next 25 years. And because I saw people in nursing homes every day on my job, I really made it very real. And I think that's part of what we need to do, is kind of do that vision work that makes it so real, and really see a better future than we even can imagine, because that's the truth. Like, I have completely transformed my health and my life by making these eating and drinking changes. It's astonishing. It's bigger than people realize. So trying to really see that, flesh it out, not just say, I want to be here for my grandkids, but really feel it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is where, this idea of, we talk about what's your why. It's really meant to be an inspirational thing, not something to beat yourself over the head with.
I
right?
know.
The foundational thing that we, one of the big foundations to what we do at This Naked Mind, as you know, Ginny, is like compassion led. It's
Yes.
yourself first. And
Yes.
so often what I see happening, and by the way, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I wrote a list of, my wife's name, my kids' names,
Yes.
and I used to travel a lot for work. And I remember before, I'd finished up work for the day, was in my hotel room, the thought, hey, let's go get some beer or scotch,
Yes.
or, honestly, both came into
Yeah.
my head. And I would pull out this list and I would read that list.
Yeah.
And then somehow I would decide to drink, and then I
Yeah.
would beat the hell out of myself later. And that's not what the whys are meant to be. Right. And so
Yeah.
the first thing I see in this question is really just, I want this person to really give themselves
I know.
grace, right?
Yeah.
It's a really interesting thing that, like, when you get to the point where you're looking at this list of whys and you're trying to use this to guilt yourself into drinking
Right.
or not
Yeah.
drinking, the thing that happens over and over and over, as you mentioned before, like what is the positive emotion here? There's no positive emotion there.
Right. I know.
Either I'm going to
You know,
drink,
even
which I don't
choosing.
want to do.
Right.
And if I'm not going to drink, then I'll be with my grandkids. But in the meantime, I feel really conflicted.
Yeah.
It's really tough. So I love your idea of expanding that why, and
Yeah.
like literally doing a visualization exercise,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like I do that with people all the time, where I'm like, think about your destination.
Yeah.
What does it feel like? And making
Yes.
it so very real.
Yes. I think so. There's a technique called the Dickens technique that Tony
Yep.
Robbins does. Yeah, where you just really project into the future. If you hold on to the behaviors and beliefs you have, where are you in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? For me, nursing home, dead. And where are you? And you really kind of go through it slow enough to feel it, and it does really kind of help.
It
But I
makes
think people are also talking about, how do I walk through that door? Like, I thought by getting clear that it was about the grandkids, that I would walk through the door and I'd be done.
right.
And the thing is, it's an iterative process, and you really, I know, my clients really have to get this. Like, you just have to you do your part for your body, one step at a time. And just like what I decided is, until I'm in a nursing home and I don't have the choice anymore of what to eat, I'm going to fight to figure this out. And I'm going to do what it takes every day. And hopefully that'll turn things around. And if it doesn't, at least I'll know I fought for it. I don't know. There's like all these pieces, making a firm decision, kind of putting in the supports in your life to make it more and more likely. And then noticing, okay, I made this much progress and I'm going to keep going with that.
I think, yes. And that's a really good point. And you mentioned earlier, like expecting too much in the short term and not enough in the long term.
Yeah.
A why about being there for my grandkids is very, very, very future based. I don't know how old this person is, right?
Yeah.
But like,
Yes.
and it seems very distant, but just understanding from something like the Dickens technique, because I think that's like 5, 10, and 20 years or something, right? You look at
Something like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And recognizing how one little choice right now, tonight,
Right.
to have tea instead of wine, how
Yes.
that one choice
Yes.
is something that has ramifications for the next 20 years, 30 years, 40
Exactly.
years,
Yeah.
And I
It,
think,
it compounds,
Right.
whether we're doing the bad habits, they compound bigger than we think. And whether we're doing the good habits, they compound. So that was a big part of it for me, is just start building habits. And one thing I would say to myself is, I do my part and my body takes care of the rest. Like when it comes to weight loss, for example, people have this idea like, I cut my calories for a week and my weight didn't go down.
yes.
This is not the approach to take to your body. It's like, body, I'm really sorry. I've really been abusing you, as though, thinking I was getting away with it. I'm really going to watch what you're telling me. I'm really going to try caring for you, because you're where I live my whole life. There's no getting a different body. So
I have to say, a while back, Annie and I recorded some of the content for our year-long program, The Path. And there is a section in there where we talk about the 3 layers of emotion. And one of those layers is something we call affect, which is a psychological term for like the physical feelings in your body.
Okay.
And I remember this was a turning point for me. And I've done a lot of this work over the years too, of developing that awareness of how I actually feel.
Yes.
And it's funny because I think a lot of times we think we feel bad because of the alcohol.
Yeah.
I haven't drank for almost, I don't even know how long, years. It's like 5 years, 6 years, something like that.
Yeah.
But developing that awareness has
Yeah.
changed what I reach for food. It has
Yes.
totally changed. And like, I think that's such a key part of this in terms of,
Yeah.
like you said, talking to your body and saying, I'm going to listen to the signals that you're giving me,
Yeah.
but doing it in a way that is not
Punitive.
punitive. Yeah. And recognizing, and I think the same is true for food as is with alcohol, like where you are with food,
Yeah.
just like where you are with alcohol is not your fault, but it's
I
your
know.
responsibility. So
I
you
know.
talked about the marketing before, and I remember, I've really tried to figure out why I like French fries so much. I mean, they're delicious, right? But like, I'm like, there's got to be something else.
Uh-huh.
And I remember when I was a kid, I had a T-shirt that said the French Fry Kid, and everyone thought that was funny. And I'm like,
Oh,
these
wow.
are these
What an
are
identity.
yeah, right. These are cultural messages we're getting. So is that the same thing with food? Is that what you tell clients? Like, it's not your fault, but now
Absolutely.
let's work on it.
Absolutely. I try to help them become aware of the traps all around them rather than, they hear themselves saying, I deserve this. I said that to
Yeah.
myself all the time. I need this. I deserve this. I had to stop and go, what are you saying? You deserve this food or drink that's harming your life, that's making it so you can't take a walk anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to think about what we deserve and start to catch that voice. But the marketing is constantly telling us this. You deserve this little treat. It's not going to hurt you. Well, it's a lie. It is going to hurt you. It's going to have these compounding effects. Yeah. But
Yeah.
you can take charge of that and compound good effects. And it's like, whoa, suddenly things are changing in big ways.
Yeah. I love that. I have one more question for you,
Okay.
and then we'll get into your curveball question. But
Okay.
so we are recording this. It is March of 2020, right? 2021. Oh, geez.
2021.
I swear, like the last year just hasn't happened. I mean, a lot's gone on, but like, anyway, time is just, I'm out of it.
Yeah.
So we're still hopefully, fingers crossed, at the tail end here of the pandemic, hoping at least here in the States, and I don't know what it's like in Mexico, but we're looking toward the middle of the summer to have a realistic thing, but like some sort of return to normalcy. But anyway, here's the question. I'd love to hear what you think about this. So my drinking has skyrocketed through all the world events over the last year, and I am feeling like I'm on the edge of out of control.
Mm-hmm.
Uncertainty is really taking its toll on me. How can I handle this?
Yes, that's such a good point. I mean, I felt that so much, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. Like, I don't know how to handle all this uncertainty. Am I going to die? Is my family going to die? Is everyone in the world going to die? It was like that kind of, we're all going to die feeling. So one of the things I started working on is, what is one thing I can accomplish today that I can cross off the list and know, kind of remind myself I have agency in my life. I can't control everything that's happening with this pandemic, but I can, clean up the bookshelf, put things in a certain order. I can clean up a certain room. I can do the dishes. Just doing the dishes gave me the sense of, I can do stuff.
Yes.
I think just find little things to get done. Does that feel like it's too small?
No, I think that's actually what's needed. Like for me, this feeling of uncertainty, I don't want to get too woo-woo here, but like the reality is that even prior to the pandemic, we had the same amount of uncertainty that we have now. The difference is our field of vision has expanded, right? Because of the emergency, because we're hearing these, tales of how many people are going to the hospital and what's going on. And is it a more dangerous time? Like, yes, technically the virus exists now. It didn't exist 2 years ago. So there is sort of this idea of a new threat. But I think what you're saying is exactly correct, because it's taking our field of vision from this to this, right? Obviously being safe. Oh, and those of you who are listening, my hands were wide and now they're closer together. But yeah, taking charge of the things, of even just one thing that can help you feel better, makes such a huge difference. And I think that's part of the problem with uncertainty. And you nailed it, is this sort of feeling of lack of agency. Right. And this idea that I don't know how it felt for you, but I can say when the pandemic started, for me, it almost, this is a cartoonish version of it, but I almost felt like there was like, I don't know, like a black cloud out there that was like approaching me. Like there was some sort of inevitability and it didn't matter what I did, right? Like here we are. And it's true. The results of the pandemic, right? The fallout of that being the isolation and quarantine and not traveling and all the people who've been sick, all of that stuff has happened. However, there's so many choices inside of that for me.
Yes. And I think we all had to find our own way of, well, I'm going to go out to this degree in this kind of situation, but always with my mask. We found our ways of coping. Yeah, I mean, I needed to go from Mexico to the United States over the summer and back. And it was kind of scary to drive across all those states and think about, wow, what are all the situations I might come across that might put me in danger? But I had an approach that I used, and then I just went with the risk the rest of the way. So it worked. It got me through.
So I love that idea of really focusing on one thing that, by the way, doesn't need to be connected to the pandemic either, right? I'm assuming your bookshelf has very little to do with what's going on outside.
I know, washing the dishes.
But yeah, but it's absolutely true. And I think that, there's I don't want to call it an anxiety spiral because that sounds pretty extreme, but there really is this thing that we can do. I mean, this is why, if you remember, Ginny, when we were doing Connection a year ago now, we were telling people left and right to stop watching the news. I think every single Facebook Live I did for like a month included some version of the message.
Yes.
Don't watch the
news. It's just making you feel worse. Yeah.
Because it makes you feel helpless. Like it makes you feel awful.
I tell myself when I start doing that, you can't afford this. You can't afford to be putting this kind of fear into your mind hour after hour after hour. You're fooling yourself. Stop it.
I love that. I take a similar but different approach. I have, you've heard that story or that saying that like you're most like the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Oh yeah.
Right? So like if you change your friends, you will change.
Yes.
I've taken that to the next level, which is literally that everything, actually, now that I realize this, I'm taking this full circle. It's exactly what you said at the beginning of the episode, but for thoughts, right? Everything that I am putting in my brain is going to have an effect on me. So if that is CNN all day long, I guarantee you, if I turned on CNN right now, I would be like huddled in the corner by the end of the day if I just watched it all day. Or if that's studying something or engaging with the coaches or like whatever we put into our brain has an effect on us.
Yeah, I love that. Good point.
Awesome. All right, let's go to the curveball question. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right, Ginny. I am about to grant you one superpower, and you have to choose which one. So you can either have the power of invisibility or the power of flight. Which one do you choose?
I choose flight. This year, my word for the year is soar. And it's partly because I'm someone who feels like I have to be working really hard all the time. And I want to kind of get that energy of, the universe has got a lot of support for you if you just kind of relax into it and quit fighting it.
I love that. By the way, that's my choice too. Invisibility, like I feel like it would be cool, but just being able to fly would be great. Could you imagine we could have flown to somewhere between the two of us and done this interview in person?
Wouldn't that be great?
Awesome. So Ginny, thank you so much for hanging out with me. This was awesome. Can you tell the people if they want to find out more about you, what is your website? How do they get in touch with you?
Yes, they can go to slenderforgood.com and they can find my masterclass there on why exercise and calorie cutting just doesn't ever add up and what does, if they're interested.
That is so good. Well, thank you again. Good to see you. Enjoy the sunshine in Mexico. And to all of you listening, thank you for hanging out with us. We will be back again soon with another episode of Coaching Questions. So until then, take care.
Bye.
Hey, I'm so excited because we are literally just about to start another live alcohol experiment. And if you don't know about the alcohol experiment, you need to literally drop everything right now and go to livealcoholexperiment.com. Here's the thing. This is a 30-day challenge and it's designed to interrupt your patterns and put you back in touch with the best version of you. You'll know it's that version that's living the most joyful life, that version that doesn't need alcohol to relax or have a good time, and that version that's having more fun and is more peaceful than ever. Again, it's just a 30-day challenge. It's live every single day. It's starting on the 1st, so hurry up. Join me at livealcoholexperiment.com. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, as it truly helps the message reach somebody who might need to hear it today.